你自己介紹你自己啦。
我係 Philus 啊，我以前幾十年前喺外證嘅，最近翻咗嚟，帶咗我太太 Annie，同3個小朋友 Caris、Hillary 同埋 Lauren。
OK， 好，我盡量記。
我呢個新朋友，又係啱啱香港翻嚟，又係 N 年前我啲大學 friend。係。介紹下。
你介紹自己？我叫 Eugenie。
你咪睇唔到喎？
我睇唔到大佬。你唔講咩我唔知。
係啊，幾個馬位我真係冇意思啫。
Carrie，係啦，咁朋友。
呢個我家姐，呢個我家姐。呢個好似我家姐，我個名一樣嘅，又係姓劉嘅。
劉小姐。
劉小姐，你叫 Sylvia。
歡迎。喺度啊！我帶咗我個仔 Nevin 同我先生阿 Win 咯。
阿 Win 啊！
阿 Win 啊！哇！我哋咧今日可能我今日走散啦，唔走散啦。咁我哋掹到邊個就傾下偈啦，大家我哋好。
Hey, we're at Bruce's Mill. We're doing the maple syrup walk. Let's see what's in here. Oh, see that? Covid 可能有機會有，但係頭先最底嗰度咧就會 show 個 demonstration 俾你，就係咧即係用啲火柴。
我認識下呢個 maple leaf 啊！
咦，張叔，你做咩啊？咁臭嘅，舉牌喺度。
好得意啊，係咪啊？
OK buddy？係有啲腳印啊，有冇排屋？
喂，因為我見我細女。
哦。
喂，有人講嘢喂，去啦喂。有人講嘢啦喂。
沙糖餸。
係咪好？
Alright everyone, so over here we're kind of talking about how the indigenous people first discovered how to make maple syrup. And because, you know, we have a pretty large group here, I think it's important to acknowledge that this is the traditional territory and treaty land of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. They treated the land with respect and care, and we try to follow through their footsteps through conservation, stewardship, and learning from the land. So the indigenous people would have first discovered the sweet water that was running from the trees, probably by seeing different animals that were drinking from the trees, and thought maybe there was some food that they could use for themselves too. They would have tasted it and tasted something that was watery but sweet, and they called it sweet water. So I don't know if you guys know this, but it takes a whole lot of sap to make a little amount of maple syrup. It takes 40 buckets of sap to make 1 bucket of maple syrup. So the indigenous people, they would have had to find a way to take the water outside of the sap to make kind of a syrup or a sugar. So they would have filled up some buckets made out of birch bark and filled up a log just like this. So this, imagine this is all sap in here. They had 2 ways that they would remove the water from him. So one, they would wait for it to get really cold, and what happens when water gets really cold? It freezes, exactly. So there would be a big layer of ice on the top, and every morning they could wake up and take off that layer of ice, and because the ice is 100% water, every time they remove that layer of ice, they're getting rid of more water. So every day it would be a little sweeter and a little thicker. The other way they would have done it is by heating up rocks by the fire, just like this. As you can see here, I got some steam that's coming off of it already. But when you put these hot rocks in the fire, you can raise the temperature and you start burning off the water too. So that's another way they would have got rid of the water. But all of this would have been really energy intensive and it would have taken a really long time. So probably would have taken about a week to make maple sugar. As you'll see as you progress on your tour, that would have ultimately taken about a day for people in the 1800s. And then in modern times, it only takes about 3 hours to make maple syrup. So you live in the best time ever to eat maple syrup, which is a great thing for you. But it's cool to look back on how this process would have started. And then you can learn about how we perfected that process along the way further on. Yeah. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Sorry, cool.
Fun fact, this fox actually started out as somebody's grandmother's scarf. It was donated to the Conservation Authority. We don't kill any animals, that kind of goes against our whole thing. So all of our specimens here were donated or they were roadkill that we found. We do not harm animals. Anyway, so this is Reginald, and Reginald is a red fox. Now we do have other foxes than red fox in Ontario. However, they're really hard to find. They're gray foxes. Scientists estimate that there's only about 110 in Canada, and they are so difficult to track down. There's a $10,000 grant on the table for any biologist or team of biologists who can track down a den of gray foxes to study. Now, foxes are incredibly cool animals. They're one of the few canines that can climb trees, which means that you won't see a dog in a tree, but you will see a fox in a tree. Now, red foxes are amazing. They are omnivores, which means they will eat both plants and animals. Some people find this a little gross, but they're also carrion feeders, which means it doesn't actually matter to them whether or not an animal they find is alive or dead. They will eat it. Does anyone here have a favorite snack? Now, what's your favorite snack? A lot of things? You are much like a fox because they will eat anything if it fits in their mouth. Yeah? The same? You're also like a fox. Alright, so foxes are also incredibly intelligent, which means that they will take any food you leave out or any food you take your eyes off of. In fact, I have a teacher, and he doesn't like when I tell people this story, I wouldn't think. I don't think he'd like to know that I'm telling you this. But he was a very avid outdoorsman. He loved camping. He loved being outside. And this teacher I had was out camping one night, and he broke the cardinal rule of camping, and that is don't leave your food where animals can get into it. I personally learned that I was an awful chef when a group of raccoons broke into my cooler and ate everything except for the muffins I made. There was one bite taken out of one muffin. They definitely tried them, and they definitely didn't like them. So anyways, this teacher I had was camping, and he was barbecuing some steak for him to eat that night for dinner. And while he was doing that, he decided he wanted to take inventory of all the food he had left. So he dumped out his bag of food, and he was sorting through it, and he decided that he would just cook and leave it there and put it all away when he was done afterwards. He figured it was fine because he was there, and what could happen? Well, a lot could happen. He got distracted with the steak he was cooking, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw a red blur shoot past, jump onto the food pile, grab a container of peanut butter, and run off into the bushes. So obviously that's his breakfast for tomorrow. He needs some peanut butter for his toast. So he runs into the forest to chase after this fox. And the fox stops in the middle of the woods, makes direct eye contact with him, drops the peanut butter, and walks away. Now my teacher is really confused because this is odd behavior for a fox. Like, foxes are canines, they're very closely related to dogs. Do dogs often drop their food? Do dogs, however, dive under the table to take food you've dropped? Yeah. So it's quite odd. So my teacher, he picks up this container of peanut butter that the fox has dropped and walks back to his campsite. And of course he gets there just in time to see another red fox leap onto the barbecue, grab the steak he'd been making, and take off into the woods. So he had a delicious peanut butter sandwich for dinner, however, the foxes got the steak. Moral of the story, don't underestimate the wildlife. They know the forest better than you. And 2, please don't leave your maple syrup where the foxes could get it. Also have this coyote. A lot of people ask me if he's a palace. He's in fact a coyote. Coyotes are often mistakenly taken by hunters because they assume they're wolves because of their similar palace. Now, much like foxes, coyotes are hungry. So I'd recommend if you're in an area with coyotes and you have a dog or a cat, you keep them on leash, you keep an eye on them when they're outside, and don't let them wander off by themselves.
How are you? Yeah. Okay, good job, good job, good job.
Yeah, that's one. This one. Hold it like this.
Gene.
Hold this one. And this one. This one here.
Gina?
Okay, 有冇人想試？你想唔想試？You want to try? No? No. Okay. 派翻俾人。你成日都想㗎。
我個身咧，轉到佢流啲樹汁出嚟啩？咦？你咁樣係？你反轉啦，個方向。
You look in the forest? Yeah. Garbage inside.
Hog shed. Wow, 係咪有嘢食啊呢度？你成日都諗住有嘢食。俾 pancake 你食好冇？哦。
И мы плевать на законы, всех расстреляли.
Oh, 真係有嘢，咦，真係有嘢飲喎！
係啊，試下呢個 syrup 啊！
啊，有嘢試啊！有嘢試㗎，
排隊啦！
排隊啦！
真係有得 taste。
係啊，有得taste 啊！come。 Maple syrup 啊弟弟喂 Where's the boy?
Here.
Hey.
At the back.
Hey. Okay. Hang on. 呢個呢個，等一陣。你攞個杯。你等一陣啊。
係啊，你小心啊！我揩到周圍係。
係咪？
OK。
嚟，呢度你擺個杯埋去。唔好喐啊！
行埋一邊。
呢度你唔好喐啊個杯。OK， 見完啦，睇下。
攞一半好啦。
OK， 好。
唔該。
又。
行開啲飲，行開啲飲，行開飲。
OK 啊。
你咪攞翻去擺俾 Pancake 啊？
一陣啊。
I only got one. How many do you want? Isn't it sweet for you?
I mean, yeah. Isn't it sweet for everyone?
Let's go.